Location: Avengers Tower. The Avengers were all gathered and they appeared more motivated than ever. In the past few hours, they had divided into teams and traveled across various locations in the past to obtain the Infinity Stones. Of course, past Nebula had encountered her present self and sabotaged the process, returning in her present self's stead. With Thanos' approval, of course. Moreover, Natasha Romanoff had died in order for Clint Barton to retrieve the Soul Stone. There was a lot riding on the Avengers' mission now. The next phase of the Avengers' plan was to find someone to snap in order to bring back everyone that had blipped out. Thor volunteered for the snap, although he was resisted by the other Avengers. As Thor continued to maintain why he was eligible to snap, Bruce Banner studied the gauntlet containing the Infinity Stones. For a moment, he considered snapping. However, he let the thought slide, as he did not believe he was worthy enough to do such a task. Soon enough, with no other person volunteering to perform the snap and Thor's persuasive nature, the Avengers decided that they were going to let Thor snap and bring everybody back. As Thor prepared to snap, the Avengers ensured that they were heavily protected. They were not ready to suffer any drastic damage to their body. Meanwhile, past Nebula had been on the computers, preparing the time machine to launch Thanos' sanctuary Seku into the current timeline. With a heavy breath, Thor put on the gauntlet containing the Infinity Stones. It was at that moment that all hell broke loose for Thor. It happened all too fast and all too slow at the same time. Thor could see his most painful memories coming back to haunt him. The first scene he witnessed was the death of his mother, and he subsequently witnessed Odin crying over the dead body. It had been so many years ago, but it felt like it was just yesterday. At this point, even the comfort that he obtained from the past version of his mother was not helpful. But it was about to get worse. He relived his father's death, but that was not all. He could reminisce Hela beating every bone of his body and tormenting him while she was at it. He remembered the destruction of Asgard. He remembered the death of Loki. For a reason, Loki's death was the most heartbreaking for Thor to bear. "Loki, I'm so sorry," he sighed, and then he found the strength to snap his fingers. There was a loud shockwave that blasted the entire vicinity as the snap occurred. Past Nebula's plan had been working until the energy released by Thor during the process of the snap intervened. It was some sort of temporal interference she could not understand. Before she could react, she witnessed the Sanctuary 2 obliterate before her very eyes in a flash of light. Thanos and everyone on that ship was gone, her present self and past Gamora included. She wanted to do something. She wanted to understand what was happening. But suddenly, she witnessed her hands begin to fade into a million little pieces. Her screams were not even heard as she faded away from existence. Location: Avengers Tower. Fortunately, as a result of Thor's godlike nature, he did not sustain any injuries from the snap. However, he had fallen unconscious. The Avengers had placed him in one of the rooms where they believed he was going to recuperate. Thor had slept for hours, lost in the darkness of his own mind. Soon enough, the darkness began to fade away, and Thor began to wake up slowly. However, even as he began to wake, he could feel that something was different about the world he was waking up to. But what could it be? "You've gotten a fat big brother?" Thor heard a voice he knew all too well. No, it couldn't be, but it sounded just like. Thor forced his eyes open and he gasped on who he was looking at. Sitting in front of him was Loki. Thor felt all his strength return to him as he jerked up from the bed. Loki did not move, as if he had been expecting this exact reaction. As Thor looked at his brother, he immediately asked how it was possible for Loki to be alive. Loki looked at Thor and noted that He should have been asking Thor the same thing as the last thing he remembered was his neck bones crushing under the grip of Thanos. Now, he was here, and it was obvious a lot had changed. He looked at Thor's belly fat and rolled his eyes. At that moment, Thor's confusion turned to joy as he encased Loki in a hug. He did not understand how this was possible, but he was elated to see his brother alive. Thor and Loki spent the next few minutes catching up. When Loki got up to speed on the whole story, he sighed that all the fun stuff had to happen after he died. Thor, however, noted that nothing explained why Loki was alive. Loki muttered that perhaps it had something to do with the Infinity Stones. Then Thor smiled. Of course it was the Infinity Stones. It all made sense now. No one could truly fathom the power of the Infinity Stones. And in the hands of a god like Thor, anything was possible. Loki's resurrection was not beyond the capabilities of the Infinity Stones, and somehow Thor's grief must have translated to willpower to bring Loki back. Nevertheless, Thor was of the opinion that the rest of the Avengers could not see Loki. Asides Bruce Banner, the rest of the Avengers had not met the version of Loki that wasn't trying to destroy New York. Moreover, if the Avengers found out that the Infinity Stones brought Loki back, somebody was eventually going to talk about how bringing Loki back must have caused some drastic consequences for the world. It was a rather interesting coincidence, though Thor did not notice, that as Thor spoke, a storm was gathering a distance away. Green, purple, red, blue, yellow and orange lightning striking slightly but simultaneously out of the clouds. In no time, Ant-Man called the Avengers together, noting that something was off about the quantum realm. The particles were out of balance, and several time quakes were forming in the realm, making it completely unsafe for anyone to travel through. However, Ant-Man was convinced that there was something more to these occurrences, and he did not like the thought of that. Tony was the first to speak. He noted that this must have had something to do with Thor snapping, to which Rocket responded that he didn't have to be so negative. However, Steve Rogers brought their attention to the pain Thor was going through when he snapped his fingers. Again, Rocket noted that wielding the Infinity Stones was a lot of power for anyone, and it was bound to hurt like hell. There was a sudden silence as Clint noted that it wasn't physical pain that Thor had gone through. Clint recounted how he lost his mind after his family was blipped by Thanos' snap. He revealed he broke down and his mental health suffered a great deal. What Thor had gone through during the snap wasn't physical pain. Thor had been having an emotional meltdown. And whatever happened in Thor's messed up mind must have messed up the quantum realm too. Location: a distance away from the Avengers Tower. The storm had become worse, and people were beginning to run for shelter. Loki and Thor were outside, their eyes fixated on the sky. On seeing the nature of the weather, Loki asked if all that was perhaps happening because of him. Before Thor could answer, they heard a thud behind them. Turning around, they saw Iron Man. "I thought this guy was dead," Iron Man gasped. From his comms, the Hulk noted that Loki was meant to be dead. Seeing this, Iron Man quickly surmised that Loki was responsible for the sudden temporal storms and destruction to the quantum realm. Stepping a bit forward, Iron Man noted that he was not going to tell Thor "and I told you so," but he was going to appeal to Thor to help them fix the situation. Thor asked what was happening, and Iron Man responded by revealing that Loki's resurrection must have seemingly caused a huge shift in time, causing reality to start to collapse on itself. If they did not do something about it, their world was going to be destroyed in a matter of hours. And if that happened, all the sacrifices that the Avengers made to bring everyone who blipped as a result of the snap back would be in vain. Feeling remorseful, Thor asked what could be done. Iron Man hesitated. He let his mind quickly evaluate the possibilities, but deep down he already knew the answer. Loki's presence was the reason for the temporal storm, and it could be deduced that Loki's absence would cause the storm to go away. With a sigh, Iron Man said it. The only way to save the world as they knew it was to kill Loki. Thor was shocked at the statement. He pondered on the statement and roared at Iron Man, asking why Iron Man would consider such a terrible thing. Iron Man revealed that Loki was already meant to be dead, and killing Loki again would not technically be murder, but a correction of the timeline. However, Thor commanded Loki to run, and summoned Mjolnir and Stormbreaker. "You want my brother, you have to come through me," Thor growled. His eyes had turned blue in that instant. "Oh shit," Iron Man gasped. This was the part of the job he hated. While Loki ran, Thor and Iron Man engaged in what happened to be a very ferocious battle. However, Thor emerged victorious in no time. As soon as he put Iron Man down, Hulk emerged and began to duel him. As they fought, Hulk admitted that he knew the pain that Thor felt, and he wished there was another way, but there wasn't. It was either Loki or the world. However, Thor was too blinded by rage to pay a listening ear. He defeated Hulk in no time. His anger added to his strength, and wielding two powerful weapons only added to his power. Soon, Captain America joined the battle, but Thor beat him as well. It took the combined strength of the Hulk, Captain America, and Iron Man to pin Hulk down. Meanwhile, Loki encountered the other Avengers while fleeing. Using his magic, he was able to trick them into fighting each other and continued to flee. During this period, the storm became worse and lightning started to strike various buildings and people, obliterating them from existence. Lightning struck the ground, and unfortunately, Ant-Man and Clint Barton were in close proximity. They faded away from existence. Loki watched the horror unfold and stopped for a moment, wondering if his life was worth all this destruction. This did not feel right. "You can feel the good arise, can't you?" Loki heard someone call out to him. He turned to the person and was shocked at who he was standing in front of him. It was himself. This was Loki, but another version of him entirely. This Loki was calm and had a majestic aura. Little did Loki know that he was speaking to the god of the multiverse. God Loki informed Loki that this world was fading away rapidly, and if it did, Loki would be rendered in the void, all alone. He urged Loki to do the right thing, as Loki had been a hero by heart all along. And then, God Loki disappeared. The storm continued to get worse, and in time the ground began to open up, breaking apart and swallowing up several people and buildings. The chaos forced Hulk, Captain America, and Iron Man to quit restraining Thor and focus on helping the innocent people. Using the distraction, Loki walked up to Thor and informed him that the Avengers were right. Loki had to die. Thor was not ready to accept the truth, and he roared that there had to be another way. With a sigh, Loki informed Thor that he had dealt with so much grief, but the thing that made him special was how his grief made him stronger. Loki urged Thor to embrace his grief, rather than run from it. And with that, Loki stabbed Thor with a dagger he had kept hidden. Once Thor fell to the floor in pain, Loki noted that now, Thor would not stop him. And with that, Loki allowed himself to fall into a cliff that had just been created with the ground opening up. Thor screamed as he watched his brother fall into the abyss. There was a loud bang as a bright light began to overshadow everything and everyone. Before the light consumed him, Thor turned to the Hulk and dryly chuckled that perhaps it was better that Hulk snapped. Location: Avengers Tower. It was the moment of the snap again, only this time no one remembered what had happened. Thor protested that he was fit to snap, and the Avengers were restraining him as they did before. However, this time, as Hulk looked into the Infinity Gauntlet, he felt a voice urging him to snap. He did not know where the conviction came from, but he decided to trust it. Hulk volunteered that he would snap instead, ending the drama.